Please come in. You're right on time. The door only opens when the clock strikes midnight. Georgia and Hannah are preparing to broadcast from the belfry. Just like this old bell tower, they have many stories to tell. Some old and some new. Follow me up these stairs, but mind your step. They're waiting for you.
I was looking for this book I have called Amulets, Effigies, Fetishes, and Icons, I think, because I wanted to look something up for what I'm going to talk about. And I was like, oh yeah, I have a book on syphilis.
One brief gossip session later.
Okay, enough about men that suck, and now let's talk about other men that suck.
Yay!
In a comment that Patrick Guinness made about C.W. Watson and Roy Ellen's collection of research titled Understanding Witchcraft and Sorcery in Southeast Asia, he admits that accounts of witchcraft and sorcery have not figured prominently in ethnographies of Southeast Asian society, which I think is very concise and kind of ridiculous. Like, has he ever heard of the Orientalism movement in anthropology?
Yeah, clearly
and
not.
anthropological theory? That's kind of crazy.
Yay.
So I'm going to take us on a tour of Asia and all of their witches and sorcery and witch hunts, starting with China. And I'm going to once again preemptively say, if I mess any of these names up, I'm really sorry. I did try saying these words, and I'm just bad. I'm bad at enough at English, okay? Ugh. Chinese shamanism, wherein shamanism refers to a religious practice that involves interacting with the spirit world through trances or other such ritual practices.
Cool.
So Chinese shamanism, also known as Wu-ism, which is the anglicized version of Wu Jiao, which stems from the word Wu, that literally means shaman or wizard or witch.
I was gonna say, is this why we call it woo-woo?
Woo-woo. Oh, maybe.
Like,
oh, I didn't read anything about that.
You know,
it's very possible.
She's really woo-woo.
Oh no.
She's into the woo-woo stuff.
Oh, I want to stop saying that, maybe, just in case.
Well,
so the
something to look up
concept
later.
of Wujiao originated during the Shang dynasty, which began some 3,500 years ago. Religion during this period was primarily concerned with worshiping ancestral spirits who became deities in the afterlife, and the overall cosmic powers of the sky, like the sun and the moon, the stars, the clouds, the wind. And Wu, who is the shaman or the witch, could interact with these spirits and these cosmic powers. So over time, because that was 3,500 years ago, the practices sort of evolved, and witches were used by the state over matters of the economy and government. So once again, witches are being used for the good of the powerful. This was happening in the Qing dynasty. This practice of using witches sort of depleted throughout the 1700s, but then very quickly became re-sensationalized from like tourism and attempts at colonizing China. And you better believe the Jesuits were writing about it, because
hell yeah,
they wrote about everything. So to the Western world, we consider witchcraft as something specific and separate in a way from our main religious beliefs. Like, we don't necessarily equate it with like the main religious practices. We wouldn't call that witchcraft. It's something on its own that's antithetical, like to the Christian religion, completely antithetical.
Yeah.
So to the white people, when they looked at witchcraft in China, or at least the shamanistic practices, witchcraft and organized religion were nearly indistinguishable.
Mm-hmm.
And well, anything they didn't understand that didn't really follow what they knew was magical and
Anything
other.
yes.
Yeah, we've been talking about other for the past few episodes now. Remember before I mentioned Orientalism and the fascination with
Yeah.
which I hate that word. But
yes, because the thing that's always the thing I've always found it weird is it's always the Oriental, but we never refer to Western things as the occipital, like
we always just say the Western world.
why is that?
Homie, I don't know. I always try and refer to like specific cultures or countries,
Yeah. Yeah. Also not to backtrack, but it's not that. We're good. It refers more to like the music that is normally played on spooky things. Like
Oh,
woo, or like the sound that ghosts make.
okay.
Woo! Yeah.
Thank God. I was scared.
We're good.
So, a few hundred years ago, in the 1700s,
When I was born. Just kidding.
bruh. And you complain when I call you old. You're doing it to yourself.
I'm just beating you to the punch.
Okay. I wasn't going to.
I never know.
The emperor ordered a couple of shaman witches to sever communication between the ancestral spirits and those on Earth so that there would no longer be a higher social order in putting those ancestors on a pedestal, because it was kind of like the whole like, if you're related to these people, you're like closer to godly. So I don't know if that would be considered like a witch hunt, in like using the witches to put a stop to the witchcraft. It's like stopping things at the source.
Yeah. Because
so
they're
already
not persecuted for being a witch.
No, not really.
They're just
it
they just
became
want it to stop.
less popular then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting.
The emperor, of course, like prior to this, did use religion and like witchcraft practices to serve his own rule and further his wishes, whatever. This was just another extension of that. It was kind of like the cutoff point. It's kind of weird. In southwestern China, over 1/8 of a certain community's population, I could not find the name of this community. I feel really bad. I tried. Have been accused of witchcraft and have been exiled or like marginalized.
Not cool.
Well, they've been accused of witchcraft, raising snakes, poisoning people, and polluting food sources.
Oh.
And there was like an ethnography chapter about that in the book I mentioned.
It's the poisoning again, though. Poisoning the Christians, poisoning whoever.
And do you want to know something funny? This is a rural community population. The majority of these people are middle-aged women who are heads of the household. And generally are widows or separated from their husband.
So weird.
Yeah.
I'm sure that has nothing to do with it.
Of course not. The man's not in the picture. That has nothing to do with it.
No.
Yeah. She must have killed him. Ooh.
Yeah.
And is getting revenge or something. Bruh, I don't even know.
I don't either.
So
It's
now
fine.
I'd like to. Oh yeah. Before I say that, it's actually not legal to accuse someone of witchcraft in China. It's illegal. Like
Oh,
you can get. I mean, just like the other
yeah.
stuff I mentioned, you could also go to prison for like accusing someone else or of initiating a witch hunt. But because this community was so on the outskirts of like urban life, the gossip spread anyway. They're just like, we don't care. Go
Yeah.
ahead.
And
Now I'd
also,
like to move on. Sorry.
I was just gonna say, I mean, if it's like a rumor circulating, it's also a lot harder to say this one person is accusing this other person of being a witch. You
Hmm.
know, when it's just like this gossip that's kind of permeating the community, it's a lot harder to follow up on the persecution of the accuser.
Yeah. Like I want to know who has the power in this situation. I'm assuming it's men, but like of
Yeah.
what social standpoint?
Yeah.
Like is this like a corrupt government kind of thing? Is it like
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
It's probably the higher class people.
Governments are never corrupt. What are you talking about?
Hey. Yeah. As we live in America.
The greatest country on earth.
No. I
I
want
don't
to
know what that
talk
noise was. Sorry.
about the Nepalese witch,
Ooh.
or as they would say, the Boxi. So this word refers to someone who has knowledge in witchcraft and tantra or tantra. That
Oh.
one I did not look up the pronunciation. They who can be a man or a woman are different from a usual deity, but they can possess divine power, and that power can be used for both evil and good, or one or the other. While
Mm-hmm.
these boxi have been historically revered or deified, that has not negated the sheer number of witch hunts that have occurred in Nepal. That's because the more harmful side of witchcraft that's understood in Nepal, or at least what's presumed to be harmful witchcraft, has really been used as a scapegoat for ulterior motives. It's come from like revenge accusations,
Mm-hmm.
government and economic exploitation, just overall against marginalized groups,
Penis
against
snatching.
people with physical and mental illnesses. It's also witchcraft is accused of people who have poor posture. Mm-hmm. I'm not kidding. Like,
That's so interesting because like when I hear the word tantra, I think of tantric yoga.
yeah.
Huh.
So while they have this side of magical being that has divine power, if they they're able to take that because they can use good or evil, right?
Uh-huh.
They're able to take that and be like, yes, this person is using it for evil. We must protect the
Oh my
community
God.
and get rid of them.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, bad posture, poor physique, and ugly appearance. And
Oh my God.
bad or unlucky things just happening around the accused witch.
Oh, so it's you. Okay.
You know. And when I say someone and the accused, it is almost exclusively women.
Uh-huh.
And it's almost exclusively the poor, elderly, independent women. I hate to say this, but ugly women,
Mm-hmm.
whose posture, physique, and appearance isn't
yeah, just because they got old and life happens.
Sure.
Yeah.
Typically widowed, and the most common statistic is those of lower caste.
Mm-hmm.
Which, for those of you who are unfamiliar with the caste system, it's different from like the Western class system, and it has to do with what family you are born into.
Yeah, and you cannot, if I remember correctly, you cannot change caste.
You cannot.
Yeah.
I think it's you can lower caste, but
Yeah.
you can't move up.
You can't work really hard and become upper class. You have to, you're stuck.
You can't pull yourself up by your bootstraps.
No.
You
can't not buy Starbucks every day and become a millionaire.
Yeah. I do recommend doing a little bit of reading into the caste system. Literally just Wikipedia. You'll learn more than enough.
Yeah.
So these women who are accused of witchcraft, they are tortured and killed via mob. They're burned, buried alive.
What?
Cut into pieces while alive, forced to eat their own feces, paraded naked through the street, shaved bald.
Okay, Cersei.
Beaten, stoned, banished into the wilds, poisoned, branded, stripped of wealth, stabbed, skinned, tied up, and more. Also, I forgot to mention, this has been happening as recently as last year. 5 women were stoned, burned, and forced to eat their own feces last year.
Surely not in that order.
I don't remember.
Oh my god.
Ow.
Oh.
Big ow.
Oh, okay. Can I take this opportunity to lighten the mood and say there's a really good Nepalese restaurant at the base of Mount Rainier? Thank you. Okay.
Never has any information made me want to like revert back to my childhood innocence where I did not know anything.
It makes my insides hurt badly enough that I have to pee.
Oh.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like cringe so hard.
Your intestines are cramping and you're just like, Yeah.
Okay.
Moving on to talk about Filipino witches.
Okay.
Who practice what's known as Kulam, which that word was, I believe, first recorded in English by an anthropologist working for the University of Illinois in 1917.
Oh, that's fun.
I bet it was that guy.
Moorhead?
No, the other guy who still works here.
Ben?
What's his name? The rock guy?
The rock guy.
That Chris has talked about.
The rock guy.
Yeah, like the professor.
Oh, Stanley?
Yeah,
Ambrose?
Stanley Ambrose.
Who we also talked about when we talked about volcanoes.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's really old.
He is. So Kulam, or Barang, use what's called sympathetic black magic.
Yes.
Which you know, but whoever's listening might not know. Sympathetic magic is like what you may know happens in voodoo, wherein you perform magic or some supernatural power on something like an effigy or like a linked object to the thing or the person that you're trying to affect with that magic you're using. Yes, a voodoo doll. Yeah.
Hell yeah.
According to Wikipedia and the Encyclopedia of Philippine Folk Beliefs, each ethnic group has their own term or terms for witches, which
Oh
include
boy.
in Tagalog, it's oh boy, Mang Mangkukulam or Mangagawe. In Ware, it's Malupad, Malakat, Mamba Barang, and Aswang, which is an umbrella term for various shape-shifting evil creatures
They got their feet on backwards.
like witches. In Bisaya, it's Aswang or Mamba Barang. And then there are also terms for the actual practice. So the other ones were for witches only, for like witchcraft or sorcery, which I think I mentioned at, was that at the top of this episode or
The
episode
etymology, it was a little off.
12?
Yeah, that was 12.
Yeah. Yeah. Inherent thing versus the practice.
Yeah.
In Ilocano, tanem or tamay. In Tagalog, it's kulam or gawai. In Visayan, it's barang, hiwit, laga, haplit, paktol, or anya. I don't know if I said any of those right. I'm really sorry if I fucked it up. And then in Moro, it's pantak. There's a lot.
That's a lot.
There's a lot. There's a lot going on.
I'm so excited to see Aswang on the list, though.
Aswang?
Yeah.
It's Aswang.
Okay.
I'm
Fine.
sorry. I Googled all of this.
Okay.
I even wrote in the like pronunciation. Because I was so scared of messing it up. So witchcraft in this sense, with Kulam, Barang, whatever, is considered evil or malevolent. With in Filipino culture, harmful magic in this sense is believed to not work on innocent people. And so witches justify their doing harmful magic by saying they're punishing criminals or people who deserve it. And usually it's like things like thievery or adultery or stealing land, things like that. In Kulam, like any sort of magic-y ritual, it's performed with chanting, spells, and in this case, like some form of herbalism. In a few things that I was reading about, like the more modern use of Kulam, it's more akin to cursing, like putting a curse on someone. These are the witches and sorcerers who will like give someone the evil eye. Or who predict death and doom upon someone, death, doom, injury. It doesn't even have to be through an intricate ritual either, apparently. Some witches are powerful enough that they can cause harm by complimenting a person. And so if you are complimented by a stranger in the Philippines, they will like say something, the complimented person says something back that's supposed to like deter that. I did not write that down, but
like
it's
a specific phrase, or like they give you a compliment in return to like counter it.
No, it's a specific phrase.
Okay.
Let me see.
Like, oh, I really like your shoes.
Yeah. I'm gonna see if I can find it. Hold on.
No wonder everyone thinks Americans are fucking weird, man.
Oh yeah. I should mention before we move on to the next thing, because we're gonna kind of quickly move on to the next thing. One of the things that a witch in the Philippines, the Mamba Barang, can inflict is hemorrhoids.
That's unfortunate.
I know. Jesus, I can't find it. Well, that's fine. I can't find it. I think it might be one of the books that I put in my source list.
Okay.
Okay. So people can apparently be healed of their harm or disease by visiting another kind of witch or sorcerer that practices
Practices.
practices healing magic.
Uh-huh.
But of course, that's just those who believe Kulam is to blame. They
Uh-huh.
A lot of other people also just go to the doctor, you know, because they're
Doctor,
like,
heal me. Thank you.
yes. But I mentioned, I think in my last episode, that there's always a witch and then a witch hunter
Mm-hmm.
slash healer slash priest person
Yeah.
who rids the evil magic, and usually that involves getting rid of the witch.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think
Mm.
that's
So the
that's
doctors are also witch hunters.
kind of, there doesn't really seem to be a history of like actual witch hunting in the Philippines because it's become, the practices have become so ingrained in the cultural history and the folklore
Yeah.
that it's either understood as simply myth, or because there's enough people that believe in actually using it, like using these witches for criminal punishment, that it's just a normal part of rural life.
Yeah.
I couldn't
It's
really find any laws against witch hunting or witchcraft.
it's not a thing to be persecuted.
No.
It's just normal.
Yeah.
Normal religious beliefs. That's nice, like in a way.
Another kind of normal practice of witchcraft is in Korean shamanism, aka Mu-ism
Moo and woo.
or Musok, which is more or less similar to Chinese shamanism,
Mm-hmm.
aka Wu-ism or Wu Jiao.
Moo and woo.
So this Musok name, while the word Mu has existed since the 12th century, Musok describes really any Korean shamanistic traditions. That word originates from the Japanese occupation of Korea and was once seen as like
Sure.
insulting because it's like, oh, these Koreans and their
Yeah.
ancient practices. But it's actually now the popular and accepted word for the religion. It is actually considered like a religion.
I feel that I've been thinking about this for most of the time we've been talking about it, but I feel that in a lot of these cases, it's very much one of those things where you like
Yeah.
reclaim the word, especially especially in our society contemporarily. It's like, yeah, I'm a witch. Like, what are you gonna do about it?
Mm-hmm.
Because of all the things like we listed previously that might include, what it means to be a witch with like feminism and
Mm-hmm.
being anti-capitalist and anti-patriarchy and being outspoken and
Yeah.
it's like you reclaim the word to give yourself power.
There's this subreddit that I follow called r/witches versus patriarchy.
Hell yeah.
It's wonderful. And not everyone who follows it and comments whatever considers themselves to be a witch, but it's a
Mm-hmm.
reclamation. Like I wouldn't consider myself to be a witch. Although
No.
after all we've talked about saying like what makes you a witch,
Yeah.
maybe I am and I just didn't know it.
Yeah. I actually talked about this with my therapist the other day because it's like, again, I wouldn't call myself a witch, but I go to my coven book club and I talk about this kind of thing, and it's like, well, maybe to someone I am, and
Yeah. To some people, because you have red hair, you could
yeah,
be a witch, you know?
I dyed it with magic.
Yeah. Oh, that would be cool.
Wouldn't it? Pull like a howl.
Or like Nymphadora Tonks.
Oh, yeah. I would love to be able to just do that.
Yeah.
Then I would have big patches in my hair.
Sorry.
It's fine.
So yeah, they've had a reclamation of Musok. What I really like about Musok is that it's actually recently being considered as an acceptable religion in the 21st century, or at least in the past like 3 years. And apparently, beliefs within Musok are
Sorry, I
very...
think it's thundering.
Oh yeah, it's like about to storm.
Yay!
Apparently, beliefs are very diverse among Musok practitioners, though it really follows the same kind of practice that happens in China with like communicating with ancestors. So Mu are Mu are specialists who communicate between deities or ancestors and people that walk the earth, either through possession, that would be the god descended Mu, or Kangshin Mu, or divination, which would be the hereditary Mu, which is
Nice.
Sesop Mu. These guys have been marginalized, suppressed, taxed throughout their existence, as the magic of the religion has been rejected, considered sacrilegious in the modern period of colonization, with Japan's occupying Korea. And what's especially fun is Mu are most commonly women of the lowest social class or near to.
Mm-hmm. Shocking.
And so Budong is actually the most common word used to describe the shamans or witches, but because the colonizing and Christian bitches just so happened to marginalize and suppress these people and call them that, they've opted for other terms, like completely, like usually Bu, or they have specific whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And I could get into like the religious history.
So they didn't reclaim that part.
No, not that part. It's kind of like, we're just going to take this part because that's what everyone has called it. And we're kind of like, yeah, that's what it is.
Yeah.
But it's like a derogatory specific term.
Yeah.
That they're like, no, thanks.
Thanks.
I could spend an entire episode just talking about this. It is truly fascinating. But I'm going to kind of push through and talk about its practices and kind of witch hunt, but not really. So the Mu communicate with ancestral beings and deities to help people, and also as an economy. Their wish is to decrease suffering and create a more harmonious life while also making it income. So it's kind of... They must consistently and emphatically pray. They must take pilgrimages, create a shrine in their home, perform dances while drumming or like using a pipe, like piping, and chanting, all so that a purification may take place for the person, their client, essentially.
That sounds delightful.
It sounds kind of fun, right? Like,
yeah,
that sounds like fun magic, like a good time. So when the Japanese occupied Korea, they tried to replace Musok with state Shinto, stating that it would improve Korean culture. That's obviously an attempt to exert control, but Japan has always had control issues.
No.
So, I'm writing that off. I'm like, ugh, you guys suck. But from the 1920s and on, people who still believe in the religion have worked hard to bring Musok back into the status quo, like telling people about how important it is to preserve ancient Korean culture because it's so old, and to not suppress its history if Koreans are also meant to preserve control as well as culture. Although it definitely got worse during the Korean War, when most all religion was kind of tamped down with the communist regime. And, it was either tamped down or attempted to be destroyed, like all religion, including Budok. But then things got better in the late 1960s and then into the 1970s. And then it really just started to revitalize at the turn of the 21st century. But now it's really thanks to social media and the internet and more acceptance of like different religions than the main whatever.
Yeah.
That people are accepting these witches. Or maybe they're just ignoring them, as everyone is kind of ignoring religion. instead.
Yeah. Either way, it's better than persecution, so
Yeah. So, last but certainly not least, I want to talk about the witch hunts in India.
hell yeah.
So, a Dakini is a female spirit or demon found in esoteric Buddhism that eats human flesh and the human essence, or their
Oh.
souls, their blood.
Their life force.
That word is also used to describe witches.
Uh-huh.
Ironic.
Uh-huh.
Over the past several centuries, plural, many of the thousands, if not tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of witch hunts that have taken place throughout India have not had proper records, as they've mostly taken place in rural parts of the country and are done by spontaneous mobs.
Yay. I love that.
In colonial India, however, you better believe the British kept records of how many women were killed for accused witchcraft. In the 19th century alone, it was speculated that over 1,000 women were killed just in the Central Plains.
Oh my God.
So just in the middle of India.
Damn.
And you and I know how accurate reports of violence against women isn't these days in the modern era. So I can only imagine how inaccurate this speculation of just over 1,000 women was.
I think
in a rural area.
I think at one point, I can't remember where I saw it, but there was basically a chart that estimated how many people had been accused and executed of from witch hunts throughout history over the world, and it was tens of thousands.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah. Oh, it's about to get real not good again, by the way.
Okay.
So, historically, Bopas, or witch hunters, were also magic users, but they were men.
Shocker.
They were able to supernaturally identify witches and then would attempt to free her from any evil power she may have, which typically involved torture and execution as like a cleansing. There was a popular method of torture called witch swinging, wherein an accused witch had chili paste rubbed into her eyes. She was hung upside down from a tree and then swung over an open fire until she confessed her crimes or she promised to release her victims from harm and disease.
Big ominous thunder boom.
In many rural parts of the country.
Wait. Chili paste in her eyes. What the fuck?
Yeah.
Why?
That was also common in Nepal too. I just didn't want to list it with all the other crap.
Not to make generalizations, but what is it with India and bodies hanging upside down from trees?
I think it was just common for hangings, you know.
Yeah, I mean,
especially after colonization.
Because isn't that how the Vatala was as well?
Yeah.
Okay.
It was like hanging by its legs. It was just like
upside down,
I believe.
Yeah. Oh, like hanging itself from a tree. It wasn't like tied. Why did I think it was like tied up in a bundle from the tree?
I think it was just like stuck, kind of.
Okay.
You know, and it was like hard to get down, and it kept moving up the tree.
Okay.
I love it.
All right.
In many rural parts of the country, it was believed that witches, or I found this word dayan. I'm not sure if that's correct. But specifically in this speculation, they became what they were due to family neglect or by dying in childbirth. So they were accused of drinking blood and hunting men, holding them captive until they die of old age, all the while sexually abusing him and using him to make children.
Uh-huh.
Doesn't this all sound familiar?
Uh-huh.
It also sounds like projection to me.
Uh-huh.
Men being unhappy with how women are treating them, say it ain't so.
Like, I understand that men can be the victims of sexual abuse, but statistically, and especially in this context, just sounds not right.
Yeah. During the various rebellions against colonial rule in India, thousands of women were subjected to witchcraft accusations as a result, which caused a mass exodus against rural, lower caste women.
Mm-hmm.
Essentially, a genocide.
Mm-hmm.
And these accusations, torture, punishment, executions also involved flogging, sexual assault, limb removal, stoning, being burned alive, public humiliation, exile, branding, and more, just like in Nepal. Very similar things happening. Oh, I seem to have made a mistake that I didn't realize. You know how I've used past tense in talking about these witch hunts in India? Well, that's actually wrong. There are still hundreds of women being persecuted and murdered in such fashions for
I'm
being a witch.
so surprised
Mm-hmm.
based on everything we've already talked about.
Many people, including state entities, as of 5 years ago, believe the most effective way of curing a witch is through physical and mental torture in India.
Uh-huh.
Feminist groups and NGOs have thankfully spoken out that these witch hunters are being threatened by these women who aren't submitting to a patriarchal rural society,
Mm-hmm.
and the women are being punished for stepping outside of traditional cultural expectations.
Mm.
And these feminist groups in India are deliberately putting themselves under the microscope and under fire by saying these things.
Right. Of course they are. Because anyone, as we learned with McCarthy, anyone who speaks out against them is also guilty.
And the last note I have, in the many efforts to ban witch hunting in all parts of Southern and Southeast Asia, or in attempts to at least try and accept it, like in Korea, we're still a long ways off, clearly. I don't know that you and I will ever get to witness real acceptance in our lifetimes.
Oh, no.
We may,
No.
I think personally, we're going to see further resurgences of violence with how inflammatory the media is towards women and how we oppress men. LOL.
Yeah. And just like, in the state of our society that's supposed to be so advanced and so better than everyone, and it's like, it's not working for us, clearly.
No. I told you it was kind of like a down, up, down
Just
situation.
like, well, now what do I don't even have anything fun to say.
We don't even have to keep going. This is sad.
It's gonna storm and then we're gonna play Call of Cthulhu.
Next week, demons, everybody.
At least Reggie loves women.
Thank you for making it through our 4-episode section on witchcraft. We recognize that it became a conversation about something a bit more upsetting and relevant to real life than some of the monsters that we've been talking about. And we can't go ahead talking about gender-based violence against women without mentioning a few organizations that are working with the individuals and communities that are affected by this violence. Majlis Manch in India is comprised of a team of lawyers and social activists that work to ensure women's rights are protected in court by providing counseling, legal representation, education on legal avenues, and by directly intervening in local governments. A UK organization called EVAW, E-V-A-W, or End Violence Against Women, has 3 major tenets: preventing abuse, supporting women and girls, and a different world is possible. They work to provide support services for women and girls affected by gender-based violence. Saki, for South Asian survivors, works with those of South Asian and Indo-Caribbean diaspora living in America and who've experienced gender-based violence against women. They provide counseling, housing assistance, youth programs, financial assistance, and they even have a phone helpline. Thank you again for listening, and we encourage you to donate your money, time, and or energy to any of the countless organizations that work to support women who are affected by violence.
Well, that concludes this week's broadcast. I hope you've enjoyed it. If you wish to stay in touch, reach out to us at broadcastfromthebelfry@gmail.com or stalk us on Instagram at broadcastfromthebelfry. Again, I hope you've enjoyed our little show. Please rate and review. And until next week, stay spooky.